What's up guys, Huntley Cycle Co back at you with another video, and today I wanted to talk about my 2025 Janus Halcyon 450 motorcycle. After 1,500 miles, fun miles, after buying this bike sight unseen from the internet, brand new. So I took the risk so you guys don't have to, but hopefully by the end of the video you guys will be convinced to go pick up one of these bad boys for yourself. Let's get into it. Why, you're asking, the fancy music, Mr. Huntley? Well, let me tell you, this is a gentleman's motorcycle, fellas and fellettes. I'll tell you what, isn't that just a beauty? The whole purpose of this video is to talk about the pros and the cons and what I've encountered on this motorcycle since I bought it sight unseen from the internet and put 1,500 miles on it. 1,500 of my own miles on it. I'm the only butt that's been on this bike since the factory, and I just got off of a 200-mile ride today. So I figured, well, everything's kind of fresh in my mind, I would go ahead and make up a quick video on just talking about what is 1,500 miles of a sight unseen motorcycle, brand new, from a company I'd never heard of up until about a year ago. What's it been like? And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. She's accumulated some bugs today, which is definitely a good thing. It means you're riding them, and that's what these bikes are built for. Janus motorcycles are a rider's motorcycle. They're not something that you trailer. They're not something that you load up in the back of a truck, take to a show and baby it and have everybody look at it. I mean, you can do that if you want to, but it'd be a lot cooler if you didn't. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the pros of this bike that I've found so far. Pro number one is going to obviously be the looks. I mean, look at this thing. Absolute stunning motorcycle. Very, very beautiful bike. The one car going by. Better. The one beautiful thing about Janus motorcycles is you can pick out everything that you want in terms of the colors and light aesthetics. If you want a brown leather seat, you can get a brown leather seat. If you want black, you can get black. I got black because finding black leather accessories is way easier than finding brown leather accessories that actually match. So went with the black. Then I went with Indy Racing Green. As you can see, beautiful color. Got some smudges on there from probably when I put some gas in earlier. Black pinstripe. I went with the solo pinstripe. In hindsight, I kind of wish Guy would have thrown, you know, maybe a secondary in there, but that's okay. Not a huge deal. Had to go with the silver feather logo. And then I also requested too that they put the logo in silver as well, because otherwise it would have been black. And I felt like it would have been kind of hard to see. And when people see this thing in person, I want them to know what it is. So obviously I won't emphasize too much on how beautiful the bike is. It is very, very evidently so that it is a beautiful motorcycle. Of course, I will point out the pinstripe. Hand done. So absolutely love that part of it. What people always ask me, one of the number one questions is what does JM 398 mean? And it's super simple. Janus Motorcycles, chassis number 398. So this is the 398th bike they've built in the Halcyon 450, not the 398th bike they've built in total, just of the Halcyon 450. So that's what that means. Let's go over the next pro of the bike, and it is the seat. The factory Sargent seat is absolutely amazing. I tell you what, every single time I've ever bought a motorcycle, I feel like the stock seat has been horrendous. You ride 60 to 80 miles on it, your rear end is done, and you're going home, and you can barely sit on your own couch because your butt hurts so bad. Not the case here. Guys, I just did a 200-mile ride on this hog today, and it was flawless. I could probably go ride another 200 now. And I can't say that about every single bike that I have. I really can't. And it's just, that's all I'll say about the seat. It's sprung. Let's throw that in there real quick. That's really nice. Sprung seat. Like I said, I believe the foam and everything is all done through Sargent seats, and I think the leather is either done by the Amish in Indiana, or that might be a Sargent thing as well. Not sure. Either way, the leather is super nice. Cannot complain about the seat at all. Another massive pro that I really cannot complain about at all is this leading link front suspension. The anti-dive feature that this bike naturally has within its geometry of the front end is terrific. Some people think it might be a little sketchy, some people think it might be a little unsafe, but I'll tell you one thing's for sure that I found with this bike is that the whole thing, the 450 model specifically, weighs enough to where when you are sitting on it and you're weighing the bike down and you're actually riding it and throwing it in the corners, it is locked to the freaking road. It's just fine. I'll tell you what, it's just fine. I know some scoogly stuff went around with the Halcyon 250s and a certain YouTuber who crashed, but that has nothing to do with this bike at all. This bike, in my opinion, is a completely different motorcycle than the Halcyon 250 just because of that rear suspension geometry. The tubing on the frame is thicker. The engine is much beefier. The whole bike in general is just way beefier, and it just handles its weight 10 times better than the Halcyon 250. I've never ridden a Halcyon 250, but you know, I plan on riding one later on this year. So I'll kind of let you guys know how that goes. Another pro I'd like to throw out there real quick is the riding position. Most people, when they look at these bikes, are like, man, like I wonder what it would be like to sit on that thing. And I'll tell you one thing's for sure, it's a nice, relaxed, upright, natural seating position with your feet directly below you. You're not bent at a weird angle. You're not, you know, sitting on it funny. You're not sport biked across the tank. You're not leaning back 17 feet like a cruiser. It's a really comfortable riding position. And you know, if I had to complain about anything, and I wouldn't call this a con, it's just a preference thing. I wish the bar stuck back just a freaking pinch more, just so that way I can bring my arms a little closer to my body. But that's just a preference thing. Like I like beach bars. I like low bars. I like low slung bars. I like stuff close to me. I like controls close to me, things like that. So, but the riding position, terrific. I'm totally used to it. It didn't take me long to get used to it. It feels like a bicycle. It feels like you're riding a beach cruiser bicycle, and it's terrific. Really can't complain about it at all. Let's jump on the power plant a little bit on this thing. So this is a SWM 450cc engine that is overseen by the company SWM in Italy. Well, I should say SWM owns the rights to this engine. So this engine originally started life as a Honda XR400 motor, and SWM bought the rights to the engine blueprints at some point in time, and they opened up their own factory in China. I know some people will be like, oh, the motor's made in China, communism. You know, believe me, I understand. I was skeptical myself at it as well. But I tell you what, if you go to Janus Motorcycles YouTube channel and you watch the whole video that breaks this whole thing down, this is a terrific engine. This thing should do 140 to 100,000 miles. Maybe that's a huge range. I only say 40,000 miles because there's a guy who's done 50,000+ miles on this engine without cracking it open, and it's still running strong to this day as far as I know. But what I wanted to point out in my 1,500 miles of experience of riding is it's just a little gem. One of my favorite things about it is when you get on the throttle, this metal airbox makes the most sweetest kind of noise. It just has this gorgeous induction noise to it. You don't get any sound out of the exhaust at all. The exhaust is so choked out with these welded in catalytic converters, and the pipe itself is extremely restrictive. So you get zero audio out of the exhaust, but you get a ton of audio out of that gorgeous looking all steel construction airbox. So love, love, love the sound that this thing makes, and it actually kind of hauls the mail, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I was really impressed when I punched it for the first time. I was like, whoa. I was not expecting that at all. I mean, this thing just absolutely, you punch it, it makes all the right noises, and then it takes right off. And it's not one of those bikes where it's like, oh, it's got a 90 mile per hour top speed, but it takes you 90 years to get there. No, that's not the case at all. This thing can fly up to its top speed actually relatively quick, which is 90 miles an hour. But once you get about 83, 85 miles an hour, it starts to kind of fall on its face. But to be honest with you, you don't need to do anything faster than 70, 75 on this thing. So all of its power and all of its speed is completely usable. And it's honestly just terrific. Absolutely love the power plant in this thing. If I had... let's get to the cons. And I think talking about, so that's a perfect segue into the cons of this motorcycle. I wanted to talk about a couple little issues that has popped up with this thing in the 1,500 miles of owning it, and some of the things that I've kind of noticed. And while we're on the subject of the engine, I want to talk about the fuel mapping a little bit. So this motorcycle, unlike their Halcyon 250, the 450 is fuel injected, which is super nice because this thing fires right up. It's no big deal. You know, it auto adjusts, it auto enriches, all that good stuff. But the problem that I run into is that the fuel map between idle and like 4,000 RPM is kind of garbage. And I don't mean garbage in a way to where the bike is not rideable. I mean it's garbage in a way to where basically through first and second gear, you have to be harping on it a little bit. You have to throw a little more throttle at it than you would think. Otherwise, she just lugs. And it just gets a little kind of, blah, blah, you know, you can tell it's not happy. But once you get the RPM up on this thing and you stay at RPM, and when I mean stay at RPM, when I first got the bike, Janus put a sticker on the speedometer that said, warning, this motorcycle needs to maintain RPM above 4,000 RPM in order to operate correctly. It was something along that lingo. But basically, that is one of my biggest complaints about the bike so far, is the fuel mapping kind of sucks. But I have some good news in that regard. Motocult Performance has came out with a new ECU and full stainless steel exhaust system for this bike, which will throw a little bit of a grumble at it, and it'll help address that fuel mapping issue. Now, one could argue, why doesn't Janus just fix it from the factory? Guys, I will tell you one thing's for sure. Getting a motorcycle through EPA regulations in the United States is a massive pain in the neck. It is not as easy as you think. Like, check out this very restrictive welded in catalytic converter, and like I said, the exhaust's super restrictive, and understandably so. But like I said, it's easier said than done getting through EPA standards on something like this. But that's totally okay. You know, I'm glad to know that there's a fix for it. The bike is 100% rideable the way it is, so don't let that scare you in terms of buying one of these 450 platforms from Janus. Don't let it scare you, because they actually are very rideable. And there's, like I said, it's one of those things where it's like, look at it as like a quirk of the bike. You just got to kind of get used to it. Once you learn what the bike likes and what it doesn't like, then you won't even hardly notice it after a while. Like I said, I put 200 miles on it today, and honestly, by mile 40, I wasn't even thinking about it anymore, and I was just riding it like I normally ride it and just go from there. The next con I want to talk about, fellas, is these tires. Oh my gosh. These are made by Duro. These are factory tires from Duro, and the front one is wearing like fine wine. It's looking just fine. And you're probably wondering, well, I'm 1,500 miles. That tire don't look too shabby, and you are right. However, it isn't this tire that I have the problem with. Yep, that's right. That's the rear tire. Look at how flat that thing is. That thing looks like my ex-girlfriend. I mean, oh my gosh. It's probably maybe like a quarter of my fingernail deep until it hits the bottom, whereas the front is at least over half my fingernail deep. Guys, it's only got 1,500 miles on it, and this tire is about shot. I probably have about 500 to 1,000 left on this tire before it needs to be changed out. And then what sucks about that is that with how good this front tire looks, does that mean that I'm going to go through 2 or 3 of these rear tires before I have to change the front too? I don't know. So another con I would say is the tires that these bikes come with from the factory are not that great. And now there isn't a ton of options for tires on these bikes. I mean, you're locked in at pretty much Duro, Metzler Block C's. And there's one other brand out there that's not coming. I can't really pronounce it. I don't know. If you go on CedarRapidsTire.com or something like that, they do sell a tire that would go on this bike, but I can't remember what the name of it is. So enough about tires. Let's get on to the final con, which is some of the bolts on this bike have decided to back out a little bit. And I will be very specific, and I will show you exactly which bolts those are. So one of them, which is the shifter lever here, this bolt loosened up just a little bit, had to snug it down. Not a huge deal, whatever, got that thing snugged down, good to go. But one of the ones that was a little more concerning, there's a couple of them that were concerning, is that this kickstand bolt backed out. And this is a very specialty kind of bolt. So this bolt is basically it's machined in such a way to where it's like a shaft that goes through this whole thing, and then it's reduced diameter down to a threaded diameter, which then goes into this into the backside of the kickstand arm. So if I would have lost this bolt, I would have been SOL, and I would have had to have prepped my bike up in such a way until I got a new bolt from Janus. Luckily, I was able to snug this up with a Swiss Army knife at a gas station and get myself home. This is kind of one of those things where it's like a little bit of Loctite would have prevented that. I really wish some of these companies would put Loctite on their stuff before they sell the motorcycles, because it's just such a simple little step that would really prevent things like that. And the reason why I'm emphasizing the Loctite thing now is because it had the same thing happened here on this chain guide down here. This chain guide has 2 bolts inside of it, and they backed out. And they backed out on me, and luckily they didn't go high enough to where they started interfering with the chain and getting damaged. But they went high enough to where that the guide was bouncing up and down while going down the road, and the bolt threads were actually hitting the holes that they were supposed to be in and rounding them off. So I had to go in here with a tap and die set, and I actually had to tap out the bracket down here that the bolts go into. And then I had to chase the threads with the die on the bolts in order to get everything to thread back in again. And then in conjunction of doing that, I had to take the chain guard completely off, which isn't a huge job. But the one problem I have with taking the chain guard off on this thing was I found something that a lot of people have complained about with the Halcyon 450s. 2 words: chain slap. Okay, chain slap. That was one of the biggest issues with these bikes. And where does that chain slap sound come from, you might ask? It actually comes from down here. So this chain guard has been modified. Originally, this chain guard actually comes down to meets up with the chain area, and then it goes back up. And it actually sat closer to the chain than how it originally sits. So what I did was I cut this area off, and then I threw a slight, you could probably see it a little bit, I threw a slight bend in it to bend it out just a little bit, so that way if that chain ever does get loose and come up and ever make contact with this ever again, it will not catch on it or do anything dangerous or anything crazy like that. So that's where the chain slap issue comes from on these bikes. Janus knows about it. I know they do. I am planning on putting something out on the owners forum about it, so that way they can see that feedback. Janus is very good about listening to their riders and their owners, and that is one of the things that I'd like to point out. So I had those 2 bolts back out on this thing, and that was something that I had to address. Otherwise, guys, I don't have any other cons. I really don't. I really love this motorcycle a lot. Believe me, I was absolutely freaking out at the fact that I had spent almost $15,000 on a bike, sight unseen, from the internet, and I only watched YouTube videos from it. And I honestly, I don't know if I lucked out or if I just got a terrific motorcycle. I think it was both, and I think that the company overall is just super good, and I think I'm really, really happy with what I have sitting here, honestly. Now that I've discussed the pros and the cons to the motorcycle, let's go over some of the things that I added later on after I bought the bike. First things first is going to be these smoked turn signal lenses. These smoked turn signal lenses are not available from Janus. Actually, as a matter of fact, these are the exact same turn signals as what is on an Indian Scout motorcycle. So, funny enough, these are Indian Scout smoked turn signal lenses. And so I swapped them onto there, and I like it. It kind of cleans the bike up a little bit. Earlier motorcycles that this bike is kind of designed after didn't really come with turn signals. So I didn't want 2 giant orange bulky things hanging off the side of it. I mean, this reflector's already bad enough. but I like to have it on there so I can be seen. But I wanted something that was a little more subtle, a little more kind of blended in with the bike a little bit, and I think that they look awesome. Here's what the backside looks like with those smoked out lenses. Another thing I added was these mirrors. When you first buy these bikes, you have the option to get 2 mirrors, but the mirrors that come on the bike are really bulky and ugly, and they got these big thick stems that come up, and you got this big pancake looking thing over here. And if you get the second one, then you have 2 big thick stems with 2 giant pancakes on both sides. I said no go to that. So I went on Amazon or the Jungle website or the Ease of Bays, and I looked up some of these mirrors here. Just got them in black, and honestly, they look terrific, and they actually work really well. I mean, just tighten them up, throw them on there real quick, and they hold up just fine. So I threw those on after the fact, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. I think the only other thing that is on here that I added after the fact that is not Janus related is these saddlebags. All of these basically are just a cheap set of throwovers. A buddy of mine gave them to me. They were on his girlfriend's bike, and they honestly fit the bike perfectly aesthetically, and they function really well. I mean, they're pretty solid. They're nice, real thick, kind of girthy leather. They match the other leather really well. And a lot of people think they're stock, and they're not, because you could tell by the rusty rivets that they are not stock. But they're actually really nice. They work really well. They match the bike, and yeah, I really can't complain. That's kind of another little thing. It was just a cheap, free accessory that I could kind of do, you know. Now, if you guys go back and watch the original video of me picking this up from the owner's rally, which is where I got it, and if you want to go check that out, I believe it's the second or third YouTube video I ever made. 2025 Janus Motorcycles Owners Rally, attending it, and that video is me bringing my Griffin 250 down there, which is my other Janus, and then picking this one up and taking it home. So I went down with 1 Janus, came home with 2. So sorry, I didn't mean to flip you off there. But basically, in that video, you'll remember that this bag was not on here at the time. Obviously, the saddlebags weren't either, but I just went over that. I ordered this after the fact. This is a Janus accessory. It's just a tool roll-up tool bag. I keep a little fuel bottle in there, and then I keep a spare master link, a little toolkit, things like that, just in case something were to go wrong on the side of the road. I can hopefully have a little something to get me back on the road. But I added that later on. Next thing I added later on was these bar end weights. I went ahead and threw them on both sides, because why would you do one? I don't know. But these things help a ton with vibration. They really sucked up a lot of the vibration, and they made the grip overall longer, so that way I can place my hand back here if I'm on a longer ride and I want to kind of relax my arms a little bit more, kind of like I was saying with the bars. The bars, like I said, I wish they were a little further back, but these things help out a lot with that, as I said. So bar end weights were a huge add-on that I really, really am glad that I did. Other than that, I haven't really changed anything to the bike other than just maintaining it, checking that chain over every now and again, keeping the air going, aired up in the tires or whatever you do with these, you know, little rubber balloon things. You know, and basically it's just been maintenance. I've changed the oil in it once. I've just been checking on things, making sure nothing's backed out. You know, I'll throw a wrench at random bolts sometimes just to make sure things are tight and everything. I'll tell you one thing for a fact. If you buy one of these bikes, be prepared to work on it a little bit. And I don't mean work on it as in like it's going to break all the time. I just mean be prepared to educate yourself on how these things work, and be prepared to educate yourself on how they ride and how they operate and everything. And just make sure that when you do actually ride one, that, you know, you just pay attention to the little things. You know, a lot of these new motorcycles have so much technology and stuff in them, and they have